So we're coming now to our third speaker, Itzia Costello. She is senior lecturer at the Department of Digital Economy with expertise on corporate social responsibility and sustainability in digital transitions, having worked in an advisory capacity with many organizations. Itzia will speak today about fake news, vaccination, and the strategic management of emotion in times of crisis. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Doris. Thank you, Rajana, and Grace also for organizing this amazing webinar. I'm always delighted to participate in talks organized by the Technology and Society Interest Group. I think you're doing an amazing work. Let me share my presentation here. Oops. So I hope you can see it now. Yes, it's coming. 1 second. Can you see it? 1 second. No? Not
yes,
yet?
We can see it.
Okay. You can see it now? Now I'm just putting it on presentation mode.
Yes, it's okay. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm just going to do this so it's more flexible. Okay, so when Ranjana and Grace invited me to present in this crisis keyword series, or this keyword series about crisis, I was delighted because I thought that it would be a very good opportunity to present my work, my very new work on a quite challenging problem that we are facing now, that it's understanding fake news related to vaccination. But before going into that, let me explain a little bit who I am and which is the angle that I'm bringing to this very interesting problem. So basically my research is about strategies for social change in digital context. So I'm in the business school in the Department of Digital Economies, Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And what I'm doing is trying to understand how digitalization is used by specifically social entrepreneurs, social movements, or people with a social interest, people that want to change issues related, for example, to plastic pollution, climate change, or issues related to diversity. So how these people create strategies or legitimize themselves in social media or using digital artifacts, how they create deliberation spaces in social media again, and also how they use emotions, symbols, and how they create collective identification for social change. So this particular aspect of my research is what I'm going to present today. So it's very much based on some work that I've been doing for some time with my colleagues on a concept that is called emotion symbolic work. So this work has been already published, but we are in the Academy of Management journal, but we are continuing doing work on this concept to disentangle and to understand a little bit more how to apply it to different contexts. So what is emotion symbolic work? Is basically the strategic use of symbols in the transformation of negative emotional shocks into positive emotional energy to promote the enactment of a given cause. So COVID crisis arrives, and I find myself wondering looking at what's happening to us, the same as I guess Branjana and Caroline, and trying to understand what is happening here and seeing so many interesting transformations that happen. And one of the things that puzzles me, it's related to vaccination. As today, in the UK, 30% of the population mistrust vaccines. And we understand that vaccination is the way out to this crisis, but many people do not think the same. And this is particularly salient in BAME communities, but it's given the news, the media, the information that happens, I understand that this is a worry that it's in everybody's mind. Even in my mind, I remember going to get my first shot. And when the doctor told me, oh, it's the AstraZeneca, a slight fear came to my mind. And then I go on and say, come on, put it to me. But we've had so many news. We've heard the media, especially the social media, that it's creating this big buzz of the dangers of vaccines. That I can really understand why there is this 30% of people mistrusting vaccines. But on the other side, this is a social problem. So, and it's very much related to, again, how, in my view, institutions are presenting the issue. So vaccine is a very scientific thing. The arguments that are used in order to counteract the anti-vaccination movements are very much related to science, cognitive data. Look at the facts, says the NHS, right? Here, safety, quality, efficacy. These are some of the words that the NHS is using all the time. But when you read what the anti-vaxxers say about vaccines, the people that are against vaccines, it's all about emotions, fear, horrible things that can happen to you, right? So that was my entry point into this research, looking at how important it is to get people vaccinated, but trying to understand how to convince people to get vaccinated, and understanding that the messages that most of the institutions that are driving change in health sector in the UK, but also in the rest of Europe, the messages that they are developing are very cognitive oriented. They are very very pragmatic, very much oriented to the importance of understanding facts and science, and that this is really not working so well. So my research really looks at, okay, how to convince people and what strategies are used by institutional entrepreneurs to overcome fake news, because I understand that most of, I understand our research says that the anti-vaxxers movement is very much relying on the creation of fake news. And fake news is, of course, one of the big challenges that we are seeing in the internet nowadays. So how did I approach this question? I found a case. My colleagues and myself, we found this fascinating case that it took place some years ago. Is the Irish HPV vaccine campaign. HPV is human papilloma virus, and this HPV vaccine campaign took place in Ireland from 2015-2019. What happened there is that in 2015, when the new vaccine for HPV was launched, anti-vaxxers group, mainly led by a group that is called Regret, did a very, very strong campaign, especially in social media, using images of girls. The HPV vaccine is very much for teenagers, girls, right? So basically, this is the target group. So this Regret group launched an amazing campaign, a very important campaign in social media using these images, as you can see in my slides to the left, about these girls that were in pain, suffering, arguing that was because of the HPV vaccine. This Regret campaign had a very important impact on the vaccination rate in Ireland, and it took 40% down the levels of vaccination from 2015 to 2017. What we also observed is that there was another group led by a woman that was called Laura Brennan that counter-work this anti-vaxxers group, the group led by Regret, and managed with her social media campaign as well to take the levels of vaccination back to what they were before in 2015, that were around 90%. So we were amazed by the effectiveness of Laura Brennan campaign. She's leading the group, but she had family, friends, doctors helping her, right? So I'm going to refer to her, but it's her group in a way. So we were amazed how she was developing this counter anti-vaxxers campaign, and we decided to study it in detail to understand, okay, how she did it, why was she successful, and trying to learn something for the current crisis, and to understand if we could learn something for the current COVID vaccination process and the messages and the social media campaigns that the health institutions are developing now. Okay, so what we did, I'm also a qualitative researcher, although I'm using, when I'm studying social media, because of the amount of data, I often use also artificial intelligence techniques in order to help my qualitative research. But in this case, we decided with my co-authors to go very qualitative, to immerse in the data and to spend hours and hours watching videos from the anti-vaxxers, but also from Laura Brennan, reading more than 2,000 posts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We took a holistic, case-oriented strategy in the data collection. That means that everything that was said, we've read it, and from every single medium, because we believe our experiences in social media are often recreated by different platforms, but also mixed with press articles, by conversations, by reports. So we took this holistic, case-oriented perspective, but very qualitative in a way, right? So after spending 5 months, quite hard 5 months, I have to say, because watching these videos, it was hard. I remember having to create this rule with my co-author, Marie, saying, okay, so we don't watch more than 2, because they are very distressful in the sense, and you will see how. I choose not to put any, not to distress anybody, but you can understand that these people use very, very emotional images and messages in order to create fear for the vaccines, right? So this is their main strategies in a way. So what we did is we analyzed all this data, and we came with this model. I'm just going to explain the model in a quite theoretical way, but then I will tell you with the data, and I choose to do this more case-oriented presentation, and then I'll bring back the data and our contributions to the theory later on. Because I understand that this is a multi and transdisciplinary audience. So basically what we are seeing is, and remember that, so I'm interested in what Laura did in order to counteract this anti-vaxxers movement led by this association that is called Regret. So how Laura defeat Regret, the anti-vaxxers. What were their strategies or her strategies, her team strategies? So this is my model. So what she started to do is what we call, she started with the mirroring strategies. Basically, mirroring strategies is about recreating empathy through negative emotions in order to first create identification with the girls that are on the other side already, the girls and the mothers and families of the girls, right? Because this is very much, this is the target audience. So create identification through negative empathy. Laura, she was affected by HPV. And unfortunately, she died 3 years or 4 years, 3 years after the campaign started. But her group continued the campaign. So they were using her experience in order to explain what was happening and to convince the anti-vaxxers that they should get vaccinated, basically. So basically, what Laura did is first create these mirroring strategies. We call them mirroring strategies because they are very similar to what the Regret group was doing. So first, create identification through negative empathy. So Laura is saying, I'm in pain too, like you are. Remember that the anti-vaxxers are showing these images of girls in pain. Then she was showing proofs of belonging, right? Then she was calling attention through the moral shock, showing extreme pictures of death, right? And creating symbolic violence against the others, right? All this that we call mirroring strategies, and I'm going to spend some details with data because I think this is much more illustrative, help Laura to create these negative emotions of empathy that then, and that was what it was interesting, she was able to transform into positive energy and emotional regulation with distancing strategies. The distancing strategies consisted on reverse identification, I'm not a victim anymore, and then get and transfer legitimacy to the community, to the scientific community. I support science, science supports me, and then create these enactment strategies in order to empower people, create hope first, saying, well, this can be cured, you can go to the positive side, and empowering the group to act and to go and get vaccinated. So this is our holistic model, in fact. Let me show you how this works with data that I think is much more illustrative. Okay, so I start with the mirroring strategies. Remember that, and we illustrate this very much through conversations with what the anti-vaxxer campaign, the Regret group, is doing. But basically, the first thing that Laura is doing is create this empathic connection, identification with the woman, with the girls, and with the family, saying, "Well, I'm a victim. I'm in pain too. I suffer. The virus is destroying my body as well, as the others are saying, right?" And then she's, especially in her videos, she's showing these very shocking pictures of herself, for example, in pain, of herself without head because she had to go through chemotherapy. And ultimately, the most powerful video that her group did starts with her dead in her sarcophagus, right? So these powerful images of creating emotional shock but negative emotional empathy, right? And she says, "I'm the reality of an unvaccinated woman, but I'm like you," right? Then what she does, and of course I'm summarizing this quite and just giving you a hint of the data, but then what she does is, because what she wants is to transform this negative emotion of shock into a positive emotion, she distances from these negative emotions and from the kind of the in pain and victimist strategies of the anti-vaxxers, and she creates this empathic hope, saying that I'm just a normal girl, I'm not a victim anymore. And what she does is she shows all these images of her collaborating with the health organization, with the WHO, with and saying how she believes in science, but in a very emotional way as well, right? So gaining legitimacy through the engagement with science, but also transferring legitimacy to the health institutions in Ireland by her participating with them in their campaigns, etc. So basically, this mirroring strategies, distancing strategies later on that transform the negative emotion into positive, into the creation of hope, right? Help her to then create a call for action that she was very much inputting in her post in Facebook, in Twitter, etc., to encourage people to get vaccinated and to tell the rest of the people the message of the importance of getting vaccinated. I'm not going to go more through the data because of the constraints of time, but I just wanted to kind of show some of the implications for theory, but also implications for practice. Basically, the first one is that we contribute to the understand of this emotional manipulation by organized groups to coerce conformity and disrupt institutions, right? Through the manipulation of both negative and positive emotions at the same time, but articulated in a process of emotion symbolic work in the transformation of this negative into the positive energy, to create positions of power for institutional entrepreneurs that contribute to the collective enactment of the cause, very much in line with what we were saying in our previous articles, but quite different as well, because we are talking about more an institutional perspective of the manipulation of the negative and positive emotions. But what we are really stressing in this article is the importance of understanding emotional regulation through the creation of identification, and the identification through embodiment as a symbol. So in this case, what we see is that Laura herself is the symbol, and she uses her body in order to recreate the symbol of what is happening. So this is the first contribution to more the institutional disruption through emotions. The second part of the literature that we are contributing to is the understanding of fake news, and fake news is a literature that is very much specifically the strategic manipulation of fake news and the use of emotions in fake news. What we are seeing, or what we are saying, sorry, is that so the management of the fake news, or the fake news is a very emotional process, and so we describe this how Laura, this new process and model in which we saw how emotional identification and through mirroring and then emotional regulation through distances can help the group to regulate the emotional state before being re-establishing these cognitive understandings of the truth, right? Which is what the literature of fake news is saying. Fake news is saying basically in order to fake news, you have to provide the data and provide more cognitive elements in order for people to understand. And we are saying no, first you have to regulate the emotional states of the people, and you do that by working with identification, basically. And basically, what at the end, the implications for practice, what we are saying is that it is very important for national health institutions, NHS and others in Europe, that to understand that the discourse of rationality alone is not enough, is not being so effective, and that we need to understand that emotions, that what emotions in fake news evoke and how to overcome them. And again, we need to put in place mechanisms for emotional collective regulation. That means emotional strategies aiming to recovering empathy, compensating with distancing strategies, of course, of the fake news in which negative emotional energy is transformed into positive energy. And where the scientific message can be heard, what we are saying is that if you don't regulate your emotions first, the scientific message is not going to be heard, because you cannot do it as a collective or as a person. Basically, this is my presentation. Thank you very much.